Everyone wants to take their business, their skills, to the next level. Small and mid-sized business owners have exceptional insight into how to do this. They endure and thrive because they find ways to overcome the challenges that come their way, and they can teach us valuable lessons to apply to our own companies and lives. Stephen Nooner, founder and owner of Alkali, a company with a unique process that helps businesses more effectively buy and manage their insurance programs. And Bob Gibbons, builder of Riata Commercial Realty, a real estate advisor and tenant advocate, are two prominent Metroplex businessmen who, along with their weekly guests, will ask their and your probing questions, finding impactful solutions that will help you reach for the next level. Here are your hosts, Stephen Nooner and Bob Gibbons.
Welcome to the Next Level Conversations that Propel Business. I'm your host, Stephen Nooner.
And I'm Bob Gibbons, and we're here with another great, not guest, but guests with an S on the end there this week. We've got two guests this week we're excited about. We have with us Roger Shake and Steve Wachs, and they are the collective brainpower behind Legacy Consulting Groups. And I will tell you, Stephen, the distinction these guys have is that they were my very first client when I started my company 13 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, more on that later. But Legacy Consulting Group is a certified financial planning firm, and they have all kinds of great designations and awards. They've been in Texas Monthly five-star wealth manager since 2010. They've been in D Magazine Best Financial Planner since 2004. Wealth Manager Magazine, Financial Advisor Magazine, it just goes on and on. They won't toot their horn as much as I will. They're great guys. They work with a very select few number of families whenever they're doing their financial planning, because you can't do that for everybody in the world and do it well. So these guys are great. I'm really excited about it. Welcome to the show, guys.
Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
You actually, when he started off saying that you guys have tolerated, been Bob's clients for that many years, I know that you guys have real staying power. So,
and you can find them on the web at legacyconsultinggroup.com.
Yeah, that's a great place to start.
It is, always.
We like to start also with the wisdom of others, and we have a quote here that Roger provided. And it says, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do that. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive." And that's Dr. Howard Thurman.
Yes.
And why is that important to you?
Well, that quote's especially important to me because over the years we've dealt with clients and just people in life who seem to be just going through the motions day after day after day. And I've just always felt that unless you're living an inspired life, you probably need to step back and look at what your life is about. So that quote's just extremely important to me, in that somebody can say, okay, what is it that I'm really excited about? What is it that I'm passionate about? And if I can bring that to my life, I can influence a lot of people around me.
So if you're working with clients that, obviously need your services, I'm assuming that they've done well financially. So you mean they're not automatically inspired just because they have money? I thought all people who have money, all their problems were solved, right?
Sadly, no.
Might create a few.
If money made things, money can make things easier,
Sure.
For sure. But I think what we've noticed is folks with money and folks without money still have the same struggles in life, a lot of that. And conversely, if people do have money or don't have money, a lot of people have a great joy in their life. So it's just surrounding yourself with the right folks, I think.
Sure. Interesting. Well, one of the things that I think is cool about your firm is you have something in your firm that most companies never have, which is what's called a conversation room, or at least that's what we talked about it being called whenever you started it. What do you call it now, Steve?
It's still a conversation
room. So this is a cool room. It overlooks a lake. They've have 4 big overstuffed chairs in it.
Wow.
And it's really to sit around and have a conversation and understand what clients think and how they feel and all that. And I think that's kind of a cool message that it sends in the way you've set up your office to make sure that clients know what's important first.
Absolutely, Bob. It's been interesting. You think about in our first meeting, we have clients answer 3 questions. And the first question says, pretend you had all the money you would need in your lifetime. How would you live your life? Well, that's not a kind of question. We have husbands and wives answer that separately. That's not the kind of question you sit around a board boardroom table to do. It's
Yeah.
having a conversation. And Roger's very gifted in leading that. And that's the hint. That's when we designed that room, was have a conversation about what does an inspired life look like to you.
Did the conversation come first, a question like that, or did the room come first, and then like which one was it, chicken or egg?
The questions came first.
Okay.
But then when we were helped find a great space by a guy named Bob, we decided we needed a room that fit that set the environment
That's
to have a
perfect.
better room,
Yeah.
have a better conversation.
And it's a big room. I mean, you think a room with a coffee table and 4 chairs, that's not a big room. But this has a lot of other space to it because you don't want to crowd people and have them feel claustrophobic.
Sure.
It's just, you'd have to go see it. I'm really impressed with it. And they've been growing and adding people, and that room has not been touched. That room stays there. It's sacrosanct. And I think that's really a great message to their clients. So let's kind of take a step back, though. Let's go back in time. And how did you guys meet? How did you decide to start a company?
So Steve and I met, we started Legacy Consulting Group in 1997, 20 years ago. But prior to that,
Congrats.
Thank you. Steve and I worked at a different financial planning firm for about 10 years together. I oversaw the financial planning side of things, and Steve was over the investment management and asset allocation portion of the business. So at that time, at that firm, we worked with about 400 clients, and things were pretty fast-paced, and we were doing a lot of work. And just over time, we had decided that, we wanted to work with a smaller group of families where we could provide true personal service and just kind of take care of all the different transitions in their lives. So about 10 years in, we decided to start Legacy Consulting Group, and like I said, 20 years ago, it's been great ever since. I still oversee the financial life planning side, and Steve's over the investment side of our practice, and went from the two of us to now we have 8 folks in the firm.
Cool. That's a fun story. So 2 questions come of that for me. So what is a life transition? What does that mean to you? Let's start there.
Yeah, so life transitions, it's kind of a big topic. We have this saying that anytime money changes, life changes, and anytime life changes, money changes. So you think about all the transitions of life.
Yeah.
Somebody starting out, they got married. There's financial implications. You have your first child. You change jobs. You decide to pursue a different career. There's the harder transitions of life, somebody getting divorced or the loss of a spouse. And then there's the fun ones to think about, financial independence or retirement, and thinking about what that next phase of life is going to look like. So there's all these transitions, and all of us just think we kind of move through them pretty seamlessly, but actually they have financial ramifications, and they're actually what I consider reflection or inflection points in life where it's time to kind of step back and reassess. Am I headed in the direction I feel like I should be?
So when you're back to that earlier conversation and kind of tying all this together, you said that you take the husband and wife and maybe ask those questions separately. So I imagine a lot of times, just because, I know people that sometimes is, may not be the same. So how much of your work is counseling and just trying to get people on the same page?
That's a great question.
How much is mechanics of financing versus almost psychology, it sounds like? You're talking about life changes.
I'll just answer part of that. We do have a box of Kleenex in there. That seems to go through because tears are shed.
Yeah.
And we could have couples that have been married for 30 years and we'll say, you're getting ready to retire. What would that look like?
He's going to stay home more.
Yeah. Our joke is you're going to have twice the man with half the money. And
That's awesome.
But it's just interesting to see, and we'll say, where would you want to live? And the answers will come back, and he'll say, the mountains are great. And he goes, I thought you hated the mountains. I thought you loved the beach. It's those kind of dialogues when we're all busy that when you sit in that room and you just start uncovering by a facilitated conversation, that's what the real important things surface. Mm-hmm.
Now, you have a unique view of these transitions in that, Roger, I understand you got a certification on this. Tell us about that. What is that called, and why is that important?
I guess it was about 2.5 years ago. I started a study program through Sudden Money Institute. Susan Bradley, who's a certified financial planner, wrote a book 15 years ago called Sudden Money. And it's like, how do you deal with life if sudden money events occur? A athletic contract or a death benefit, or you won the lottery or something like that. And out of that came, how do we help people with these transitions in life, not necessarily just sudden money events. And so over the last 15 years, she's put together a curriculum and studied just, what's kind of the neuropsychology of transition. And so she actually got and started this accredited program, and I was part of the first graduating class. It was a 2-year program of study, and then we had to do, comprehensive essay exam, written exam, and then what would you call it? The role playing. You had to do an oral part of the exam where you actually exhibit your skills in a client situation.
Wow.
And it's been fascinating.
And what's it called?
Certified Financial Transitionist is the designation.
Transitionist.
Yes, a mouthful.
Wow. That does sound interesting.
I won't.
You get an Olympic medal in that.
I think it's right after curling.
And Roger won't brag on himself, but he's the only one in the state of Texas with 3 that includes that transition with the certified financial planner designation, registered life planner, and that last designation, which is really hard to say.
The only one.
The only one in the state of Texas with
Wow.
those 3 designations.
Congrats. That's
Thank you.
huge.
Thank you.
Well, so what has that done to your practice? Have you changed your practice in any way by having those designations? Do your clients seem to notice or care?
I think when we first started the practice 20 years ago, I would say we did what I would call traditional financial planning, helping people think about college funding and retirement and being sure they had adequate insurances and just traditional financial planning, asset allocation. How do I manage my portfolio? Over time, those designations just made us realize the importance of developing and fine-tuning deep listening skills. And that listening and asking good questions and helping people clarify the values that they live by have just made our process a much deeper and richer process. And I think what it has done is, over time you discover these things about people, but because we go about it in a different way now, it allows us to probably accelerate the depth of the relationship by 5 years. What it might have taken Bob, you and me 5 years to achieve, that happens really within about a 6-week period.
Wow.
So I think it's huge.
That's awesome. It's almost like you've accelerated the art. You guys were doing the craft, right? But now you're getting into the art of it,
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Well, we're going to go to a break. When we get back, we will reveal the #1 first job of self-made millionaires. Stick around.
Oh, I can't wait.
And now, Confessions of a Recovering Landlord.
This is Bob Gibbons with Riata Commercial Realty, and I am your recovering landlord. After 20 years as a landlord, I now use that experience only for the benefit of companies that lease or buy office buildings and warehouses. Today's confession: knowledge is power. We all negotiate from a position of power and strength, or at least we want to. In any negotiation, the party with the most knowledge probably has the upper hand, and landlords count on this being the case whenever you're negotiating a lease, because most landlords are professional real estate investors and they hire professional leasing agents and property managers. Landlords are in the market every day negotiating leases, while tenants probably only negotiate 1, maybe 2 leases every few years. So tenants feel outgunned. Don't let landlords have all the power. As a former landlord for 20 years, I understand how landlords think and what motivates them, so let me put that knowledge and experience to work on your side of the negotiation. To learn more, contact me at TexasTenantRep.com. Again, that's TexasTenantRep.com.
Have you started making plans to take your business to the next level in 2016? Hi, I'm Stephen Nooner, founder and CEO of Alkali. We have a trademark process called the Empowered Advantage that enables CEOs, business owners, and entrepreneurs to more effectively buy and manage their insurance. Before sitting down to make your plans for the new year, here are just a few things to consider. Would you say that you have an actual insurance strategy, one that you can articulate, or have you just purchased a policy here and there over the years? If you have an insurance strategy, was it discussed under the pressure of a renewal deadline or considered earlier in the year to avoid fire drill decision making? If your answer was no to either of these questions, then you may not have the right partner on your team. Visit alkaliservices.com to contact us and take the next step to a bigger and better future.
Hi, I'm Kevin Bomfield with Consenta. We empower technology leaders to achieve their legacy, and today we're going to find out if this show has any purpose.
Welcome back to The Next Level, Conversations that Propel Business. We're here with our guests, Steve Wachs and Roger Shake of Legacy Consulting Group, and you can learn more about them at legacyconsultinggroup.com.
So I gave a little teaser before we went to the break, and I thought it was just really interesting in prepping for today. I identified a really, really big trend within all of our guests that have been on the Next Level show. And by all accounts, most people have had a pretty good level of financial success that have been on the show. And I was telling my daughter and sharing it this morning. What I identified is the number one first job of all of our prior guests that have started pretty successful companies has been, any guess?
Yes, because we talked about it, so
I
I'm
know.
not going to blow it for you. Go ahead.
Lawn mowing.
I agree. We've seen so many people that have lawn mowing businesses or had them whenever they were, teenagers. And I think it's a cool thing because it teaches them so many things, how to interact with people, how to collect, how to work hard, even when it's in really uncomfortable conditions, hot, whatever. And so I think it's cool.
I hope it doesn't go away. The technology today has, I think, killed so many, and all of our government bureaucratic laws, not meant to be a political statement, but more and more, just I think a lot of the entry-level jobs are going away. And I think things like that are really good for character building.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so we've kind of danced around this subject a little bit, but tell me real clearly, who is your ideal client?
Is it Bob?
Clearly not. I can promise you.
Well, when Steve and I started the practice, 20 years ago, things looked a lot different than they do now. Our original intent, and still remains that, is that we want to work with a select group of families. And we want to have the capacity to be able to give them real personalized service and be there with them kind of from cradle to grave, is really be our desire. So by the very nature of that, we decided early on we needed to work with higher net worth families, so we could serve a limited number of families. So we divide our clients into two areas. One we call core clients and future core. So for us, a core client would be somebody that's interested in a long-term planning relationship, understands the value of advice and is willing to take it. And on the financial side of things, typically has $3 million or more of investable assets.
Investable assets.
Investable assets. Okay. So that's excluding house and all those other hard assets. But kind of that $3 to $25 million of investable assets is is a spot that we can make the most impact in.
And is that $3 to $25 million? Are you looking for them to be investable? A lot of times might mean willing and ready to put it into the market, or like private investments. I'm willing to invest in companies or startups or stuff like that. Is there any nuance to that with you guys?
We've had a combination of both of those over the years. Typically, it would be $3 million or more that we can help direct and give them advice on. But we do have a lot of clients with private investments, and we give advice on those as well.
You do, okay. And you guys are, because I know sometimes people can't or whatever because of their broker dealer situations. If it's not a securitized deal, are you guys able to do that in a business like yours?
Yes, we are. We're able. They'll ask us to do due diligence on something, and if it fits again back into their plan, that's always the key.
That's cool.
To determine, does it fit into their plan? If it does, then we'll give them the best advice to say this makes sense or it does not make sense.
And that's unique in y'all space, isn't it? I mean, am I speaking on a turn here? Because I always thought that a lot of times you couldn't do that. Is that because of the way you guys are structured, or
as a registered investment advisor, we can review outside investments.
That's awesome.
And again, always looking under scope. It may be an absolutely outstanding investment, but may not be suited for their situation, or it may be suited for.
Now, you said core, but you also said PreCore. So what's PreCore?
Yeah, actually, future core
future
is
core,
what it
sorry.
is. So that's somebody that eventually one day will grow into a core client for us. And this came about really in the last year or so. We've added two wonderful planners, Michael Babcock, who's a certified financial planner, and then Matt Quinn joined us. He's a chartered financial analyst. And they are younger than us. And
Like, that's hard.
And one of the tasks we gave them was, how do we attract and retain millennial clients? 2/3 of our clients right now are what we call financially independent. They're probably age 60 or older. So that's really great. They've been successful in life, but also you need people who are actually adding to their portfolios and not taking money out. So they've really worked on a way for us to interact and have I guess I would say a little bit scaled back planning process for younger clients who aren't at those levels yet. But they're making good money. They have a planning and savings mindset, and they're thinking about the future. So we have a process now that can hopefully over time help them grow into being core clients one day for the firm.
So whenever you guys were, you talked about how you split off on your own 20 years ago, and it was just the two of you, and then you've grown it and you have more people now. When did it turn from being sort of a two guys practice to an actual business that has a life of its own?
About 5 years ago, it was one of those situations, as I've joked before, when we started this thing, we grew mustaches to look older. And then when I had knee replacement about 5 years ago, clients are wondering, Steve, I care about you, but what if something happens? And so then Roger and I had to come to basically answer the question, what do we want the legacy of Legacy Consulting Group to be? Just grow old with our clients and last one out, turn out the lights, sell to somebody else, or do we want to try to keep the culture and our process, which we value? And we decided the latter. And it's been a lot of work, but it's exciting because we've been now being able to put together a strong team. As a business coach once told us, I said, Roger and I both have master's degrees in management. The last thing we want to do is manage people. And his line was, Steve, if you have to manage people, you have the wrong people. You can manage processes, but if you can lead and mentor, if you can do that, then I think it'll be an exciting journey, and it's been awesome to see these young folks who come in to make sure that we have Legacy Consulting Group can go on beyond us, but at the same time, and more importantly, just as importantly, is to make sure our existing families can be served should something happen to us.
Well, and I got to imagine, in a business like yours, something happened, heaven forbid, to you guys, it's how do you take care of the families? But you're taking care of families, and I know we talked about the husband-wife situation, but at some point, if they're in their 60s and up, they're transitioning a significant amount of wealth probably to their kids. Then do those kids go out and find new people? I would imagine that their parents, when sending that wealth to them, hope that they would keep the type of advice that helped them build it to begin with. Is that?
That's actually been a very intentional part of us growing our business. If we do a really great job for the 60, 70 years old, they have adult children and they want to pass that on or have money go to charity. So we've been very intentional about working with the adult children of our older clients and actually going so far as to facilitate intergenerational family meetings.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times mom and dad haven't really talked to the kids about money and, whatever their fears are. Well, if they know about it, it's going to blunt their initiative. They're not going to, they're going to be trust babies or whatever, their fears are. So it's really talking about that and then facilitating a meeting where it's not just talking about the money, but talking about what the family values.
So you bring up a good point. What is your advice to clients when it comes to how they provide for their children, if at all? And are they going to screw them up by doing that?
Yeah, I think part of our advice is really helping them explore what's important about money to them. And is that something they want to pass on? All of us have grown up with money messages that we receive. My dad always told me, Roger, money doesn't grow on trees. Yeah. What do you do with that? I don't know. You go and start a lawn mowing business,
Stop buying trees. Start cutting grass.
That's right. So it's talking through those money messages with the older generation, and then what is it we want to communicate to the younger generation? And a lot of times it's just fear driven. We say, well, why don't you start gifting some money to the kids, maybe $10,000 a year? Well, they'll just mess up with it. I'm afraid of what will happen. And then we have the conversation, well, if you're afraid of that now, and then down the road you're going to pass along 500,000 or $1 million, pick a number, and you don't want to give them any training, it's kind of like we want to say, you can really help them go from crawling to walking to running and be alive and see that happen, as opposed to just dumping money on them in the future.
That's a great point. So if you've been growing quite a bit, what if you wanted to grow your company by 10 times? What would you have to do?
Simple answer, we would not want to grow 10 times.
Wait a minute, you're an entrepreneur and you don't want to grow 10 times?
That's correct. We're not against growing. In fact, we're intentionally trying to find new families to get our message out. We do an absolutely outstanding job in our processes on planning, on investment planning, and financial planning. What you'll find, Roger and I, neither one have, as an entrepreneur, a rainmaker personality. We just love serving our existing families, but we know we need to get the message out. And so with that in mind, growing 10 times, we've always said the reason we limit the number of new families we take is to be able to serve our existing families. We grow 10 times, we can't honor that commitment.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So how do you get a message out? I mean, for us, we have a similar approach with our business, the way that we serve. So we enroll our clients, and our clients are our number one source of new business. And they understand that allows us to grow, which we need to do, but also allow to stay more focused on them. I mean, has that sort of been your approach, or do you guys do outside of, marketing or?
Radio interviews are a primary version of that.
But only after 17 invitations.
Yeah.
Right. For the audience, Bob invited them, asked them to come on 17 times. I don't know if that's a function of the radio show or Bob. But
Let's not go there. We only have a minute left. Roger, what's the biggest threat to your industry these days?
Well, I think the biggest challenge right now is just the whole technological change in our industry. You know, you hear a lot about robo-advisors and, pushing people to do things online. And I think there's some value there. There's certainly some efficiencies that can be garnered there. But I think when you're talking about life aspirations and what's important to you and what you really care about, you have to really look at the human experience of that. And the human experience is what we think is really important. The technical side of that, yeah, we do that, and that's all good, and that's really important. But the human experience is ultimately the most important.
So do you think ultimately that's going to evolve to technology, human teamwork?
Absolutely. I think it's headed that direction already.
Well, guys, thanks so much for being our guest today. We really appreciate it. For our
Thank you.
listeners, please go to legacyconsulting.com to learn more. legacyconsultinggroup.com. And if you want to know more about the show, go to nextlevelshow.com or look us up on the web. I'm on the podcast at The Next Level Show. I'm screwing this up.
Help spread the word. We need all the help we can get.
See you next week.
You have been listening to The Next Level, Conversations That Propel Business with Stephen Nooner and Bob Gibbons. Join us every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. for more prolific conversations that will take your business to the next level.